What's up? It's Cherith, the Starry-Eyed Tarot Reader. Today I'm doing a video response to Astral Lady Tarot on a video that's over a year old because that's my life. This was a hashtag that went around last year. I made a list of decks for the hashtag with the intent to respond, and I obviously didn't. But it's part of the theme of the response was Pride, and since it's Pride Month, I wanted to do it this year because I've had the list for a year now, and I really want to talk about it. So the original hashtag, I believe, was Rainbow Decks, and it was one deck for each chakra. Astral Lady Tarot did a variation on that where she included decks corresponding with the colors of the original Pride flag. I am doing my response based off of that, but I am including the colors and meanings for the updated Pride flag. So I've got two decks for each category. One deck for Pride and one deck for Chakra. So we'll get started with red, which is the root chakra, and according to Wikipedia, red on the Pride flag stands for life. So we'll start with Pride, which is the Heart of Faerie Oracle. These are the backs. Oh, I got my cool witch ring on today. So this is a Heart of Faerie Oracle by Brian and Wendy Froud. The reason I chose this deck for Pride, for life, for Pride, is that it's a deck that very much feels full of life. It's very alive in the illustrations and the colors. And the meanings of the cards, it feels like a very alive deck, like a celebration of life and everything that goes along with it. It's one of my favorite decks. Absolutely beautiful. I feel like I say that about every deck, but it's more accurate in some cases. I mean, yeah. This is one of my favorite cards. So there's 3 cards in this deck that don't have names or meanings in the guidebook, and this is one of them. I pull this card so much when I use this deck. I love them. They're so cute. Little mushroom people. So yeah, that is the Heart of Faerie Oracle. That is red. Stands for life for Pride. The next one for red is the root chakra, and for that I chose the Santa Muerte Tarot. The reason I chose this one for the root chakra, show the backs, is that this is a deck, not only does it seem to me to have a lot of red in it, but it also feels like a very grounding deck, which is what the root chakra is. It's it's what grounds you to the here and now, to the earth. And this deck for me feels like a very grounding deck, very, very root chakra energy, in my opinion. It's one of my favorite cards. So yeah, that is the Santa Muerte Tarot, and that is for the root chakra. The next color is orange. So for that one, for the chakra, that's the sacral chakra, and for Pride, the orange color stands for healing. So we'll do Pride first, and on that one I chose the Enchanted Map Oracle by Colette Baron Reed and Jenna Della Grottaglio. These are the backs. It's all in order, but this is definitely my favorite card. I chose this one because of my experiences with this deck. It feels like a very healing deck, and that's what orange stands for on the pride flag, is healing. And so for me, this deck was an obvious choice because it is a very healing deck. It's also got kind of a lot of orange, I think. And then for the chakra, the sacral chakra, I chose the Serpentfire tarot. Not only does this deck feel like it has a lot of that orange color, I think, for me anyway, but this is also, I mean, it very much has that sacral energy, that sometimes sexual energy of the sacral chakra, but also very fire. Still grounding, but a fiery sort of grounding. And it just feels very, I don't know, that orange sort of color and vibe energy to me. So that is the Serpentfire tarot. The next color is yellow, which is the solar plexus chakra. And for pride, yellow stands for sunlight. So for pride, I chose the Star Spinner tarot. These are the backs. This deck just feels very light and fresh and sunny. Yeah, it's kind of a hug deck too. It kind of just puts a smile on your face. Also, the entire Wands suit is yellow. It's got a lot of yellow. It's got a lot of yellow in the other suits. It just feels a very sunlight type of deck. So that is the Star Spinner tarot. And then for the chakra, for the solar plexus chakra, for yellow, I chose the Sasuraibito tarot. The reason I chose this is not only because of the color association. I feel like this has a lot of yellow tones in it. It's got a lot of those bright colors. It also, for me, feels like a deck that very much encourages self-confidence, self-love, you know, be bold, be brave, that type of energy. I feel like is very much in this deck. So that is why I chose the Sasuraibito tarot for the solar plexus chakra. And next is green, which is the heart chakra. And in the pride flag, it stands for nature. So for pride, I chose the Cosma Visions. I chose the Cosma Visions Oracle. I feel like this deck is very nature based. It's also very green, and I'm basic like that, I guess. It also has a lot of, like I said, not a lot of nature themes in it. Which is what it stands for in the pride flag, nature. It's just such a beautiful deck. So that is the Cosma Visions Oracle for Pride. And then for the chakra, which is the heart chakra, which is all about love and compassion, I chose the Gentle Tarot. I'm pretty sure there's not a more perfect deck out there for the heart chakra and for that sort of just loving energy that this deck has. It's got a lot of nature in it, so it's got a lot of green. Just do a little bit of a flip through here. Yeah, it's a very loving deck. Feels very fitting for the heart chakra, and that's why I chose it for that. So the next color is blue or turquoise. So that is the throat chakra. And for pride, it stands for magic or art. So for pride, I chose the Dreamscape Oracle deck by Matt Hughes. I mean, this deck feels very dreamy. It's the Dreamscape, but it also just feels very magical, and it's the artwork on it. It feels like an artist's deck. My brother's favorite animal. Not really. He's scared of tigers. It's funny. But that is the Dreamscape Oracle. Magic or art for pride. For the throat chakra, in this I chose the Light Seers Tarot. These are the backs. I modded this deck, so I edged it. The reason I chose this one for the throat chakra, it feels like it's a really good communicator. It feels, for me, this deck is excellent at helping me communicate. I don't know a better way to phrase that. So that's why I chose it for the throat chakra. The next color is Indigo, which is the third eye chakra, and it stands for Serenity and the pride flag. So we'll go with pride first, and for that one I chose the Nocturna Oracle. So the reason I chose this one for pride is because this deck just feels very serene and very calm. It has a sense of like resting and peace. Just like a moment to breathe. One of my favorite cards. So that is the Nocturna Oracle, Serenity for pride. And then for the chakra, that's the third eye chakra, which is about imagination and intuition. And I chose the Witch's Tarot. These are the backs. So the reason I chose this one for the third eye chakra is because this tarot deck for me very much feels like it taps into my intuition. I mean, it's a Rider-Waite based deck. I mean, it has, similar imagery to the Rider-Waite tarot. But for me, there's just something about working with this deck that really taps into my intuition. And so that is why I chose it for the third eye chakra. All right, so the next color is purple, which is the crown chakra and stands for spirit for pride. And on this one, I don't have two decks. I chose one for both. And the reason for this is, the deck I chose is the Weaver Tarot, the Journeyer edition. The reason that I chose only one deck for this, I don't feel like I have another deck that really fits this category or these categories as well as the Weaver Tarot. It definitely fulfills the spirit aspect of pride as well as the awareness aspect of the crown chakra. So I'm going to show you the deck. These are the backs. It's also very purple. It's got a holographic, like, rainbow covering to the whole deck. But like I said, it feels like it very much has the spirit quality for pride, as well as the awareness aspect of the crown chakra. So that's why I have this for both for both the chakras and for pride. All right, so that's it for the chakras, but there are a few more colors for the pride flag. So we'll go through those. And I'll insert a picture when I say the updated pride flag. I'll insert a picture of what that flag is so you can see it. All right, so the next color is pink, which stands for sexuality or trans for pride. So for this one, the first deck I chose is actually a Kickstarter. It's She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. It's my only majors only deck, so it's just the major arcana. These are the backs. The reason I chose this one for this category is because this show is very, or just felt to me to be very LGBTQ friendly, and it's not overly mature. Like, it doesn't have like overly mature themes because it's a kids show, but it still has it has a non-binary character. The main character is queer, and they handled it really beautifully. And so that's why this deck for me falls into this category. So I have two decks for this. The next one is the Forest Enby Tarot. So I chose this one partially because it is pink. But also, again, it's very, you know, it's got, I mean, it's an Enby deck. So it's got that feeling to it for trans people. So that's the Forest Enby Tarot. The next color is brown, which represents queer, trans, Black, Indigenous people of color for pride. So for this one, I have two decks again. And the first one is the Lubanko Tarot. I warned you guys that you would see a lot of this deck, and I was not lying. It is absolutely one of my favorite decks of all time, probably. The reason I chose this for queer, trans, Black, Indigenous, people of color is because this is a very diverse deck. It's also a deck specifically created for queer people. I mean, the creator's queer. It's exploring the surreal, the intense, the queer, and the divine. And I don't know a more perfect description for a queer-based deck than that. Like I said, it's also very diverse. So it's got a lot of skin color diversity, age diversity, gender, sexuality. It's just a beautifully done deck. I'm just gonna cry every time I talk about it. Not cry, but like just gonna ramble on about how beautiful it is until everybody loves it. The other deck I chose is very much in the same theme as the Lubanko Tarot for me, and that is the Outsider Tarot. It's tarot for outsiders. And unfortunately, queer, trans, Black, Indigenous, people of color tend to be outsiders even in their own community, which is bullshit. But again, this is a deck created by a queer creator, full of queer themes, queer people. Like it's a queer deck in the best possible way. It's another one of those decks that's also very diverse. So that is why I chose those two decks for brown. The next color in the pride flag is black, which represents those lost to and living with AIDS. I have 3 decks for this color. The first one is the Dark Days Tarot. It's a black and white deck, which is part of the reason I chose it for this. And the other part of the reason I chose it for this category is hard to put into words. There's something about the illustrations of this deck that not only feels very representative of the queer community, but it has, the themes of joy and loss that surround the stigma of living with AIDS and the sense of joy or the sense of loss that comes with losing people to AIDS. So that is why I chose that deck for that color. The other 2 decks I chose are the Neon Moon Tarot by Pixel Occult. I chose this deck because, again, same as with the Dark Days Tarot, it feels a very queer-centered deck. It also takes place, the creator has put this in a post-apocalyptic world, which just feels very appropriate to me for that representation of living with AIDS, losing people to that. So that's why I chose this deck for black. And the last deck I chose for black is the True Black Tarot. So yes, part of the reason I chose this deck is because it is all black. But the other part is, for me, this deck, there's something about it that feels very hopeful. And it's not that the other 2 decks don't have a sense of hope, but this one, more than those 2, I feel has that sense of hope and joy. And I think that's important to keep in mind for what black represents in the pride flag. And then the last color in the pride flag is white, which is representative of all of the colors for pride. I have 2 decks for this one. The first deck is the White Newman Tarot. These are the backs. The reason I chose this deck is because it just feels very representative of all of the colors of the whole spectrum of pride. Yeah, sorry I didn't say a lot. I'm not really sure how to explain my feelings around it. So I just kind of wanted to let you guys look at it and see for yourselves. The other deck that I chose for white is the White Light Oracle by Alana Fairchild. And the reason I chose this deck for white, for pride, for all colors, is very much because of the sense of light in this deck, and just the sense of all colors combining to create something new and beautiful, and just the intensity that comes through with that. Yeah, that is the White Light Oracle. And that is my Rainbow Decks video featuring decks for the chakras and decks to represent the colors of the pride flag. Yeah. Like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Bye for now.